All right, everyone, welcome back to ZT Fully Loaded. I am your host, Zachary Torres, and this is our college football week 3 recap, guys. As promised, I'm going to try to separate these videos, the recap from the preview. So tonight is our recap. I'll be dropping the preview more than likely tomorrow night or Friday. Please stay on the lookout for that on social media. But this is going to be our week 3 recap, and we're going to go ahead and start off with the recap of our picks. Our updates on our futures, and then we'll jump into our weekly winners and losers, as that is part of our normal segment, guys. Okay, so I hope you guys enjoy. Again, make sure you guys are following, liking, retweeting, sharing, subscribing to the social medias, guys, on Instagram, on Twitter, and on YouTube. ZT Fully Loaded. I appreciate all the support, guys. All right, so college football week 3 picks. We had Iowa State at Ohio, and actually, before I even get into these, I remember warning you guys. I even put it as a loser of the week. The slate for week 3 was terrible. I felt no confidence whatsoever in any of the spreads. It was definitely the definition of the preseason before conference games started, and that's exactly what it looked like, and that was the exact outcome. So let's jump into the picks. But yes, I do apologize if anybody tailed these picks. It was a sorry slate from the beginning. Tried our best, but it just did not turn out the way we wanted. We're hoping for a big bounce back in week 4. Especially with the amazing slate that we have. A lot of top 25 matchups, a lot of marquee matchups, the start of conference play. It's going to be a great weekend of college football. So with that being said, we start off with Iowa State at Ohio. We're going to talk about Iowa State a little bit later on in our winners and losers segment, but they can't even cover against Ohio, a non-Power 5 conference team, a MACtion team. Granted, the referees did miss a huge call in the field goal on a field goal department, which Iowa State ends up losing by 3. Ironically enough, at the end of the day, they were down 10-0 in the fourth quarter. They did not deserve to win that game, but that referee should be investigated. There was a lot of bad judgment calls on Saturday. Let's not even get into the UFC. I'll save that for the UFC recap and the UFC preview. But yeah, bad judgment call on the UFC, bad judgment call on that field goal attempt. But yeah, Iowa State goes down to Ohio. Matt Campbell, not a good look, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on. Kansas at Nevada, we had Kansas minus 27.5. Kansas looked absolutely dominant against, Illinois the week before. Could not do anything or stop Nevada, which Nevada is the second to last team in the FBS going into week 3. They couldn't stop them. It ends up being a really close game, and Kansas pulls it off by 7, but gets nowhere near covering 27.5, so we missed that one. Western Michigan at Iowa, this was heartbreaking. Western Michigan was up at halftime, I want to say. Then they just completely fall apart in the second half and still recovering, and then a bad beat at the end led up a last-second field goal, and Iowa comes away with that victory by 31 points instead of 28. So, yeah, a bad beat on that one. Florida State at Boston College finally got ourselves our first win over 48. Florida State did struggle quite a bit against Boston College. It was a surprise to many. Boston College was able to put some offensive numbers up against them. And then Florida State's Jordan Travis gets hurt. So it became a really interesting game, but they easily covered this 48-point total. And then Alabama at UCF. This was probably my favorite play of the week. Alabama versus UCF under 61 points. Alabama's defense would come fired up after getting picked apart by the Texas offense, and that's exactly what happened. But a thing that helped us as well is just the sorry play of Alabama quarterbacks, and we're going to talk about them a little bit later on. But it was a close game in halftime, close game in the third quarter, and then Alabama pulls away in the fourth. But sorry performance from Alabama, sorry performance from their offense, and that allows us to clear our under 61 points. So those were our 2 victories on the weekend. All right, so let's do an update on the futures really quickly, and we'll do this again when we're talking about it in our week 4 preview later on in the week. But Clemson still 0-1 in the conference. They haven't had another conference game other than the first one against Duke. LSU's 0-0 in the conference, even though they do have that one loss. Texas hasn't started conference play either. Oregon or Michigan haven't started, so we're all sitting at 0-0 except for Clemson. And then the beginning of the year, Heisman favorites that I had, which my dark horse, of course, it was Caleb Williams. He's actually dropped a little bit further. Last week he was 350. He started the season at 450. He's now at 325 going into week 4. And then Sam Hartman, my dark horse, looking better and better. Started at 1,600. Last week was at 950. This week at 850. And then he has this huge home game against Ohio State that can really propel our chances. So really excited to see him in action there and see what we can get. And I guarantee you, if they get a victory and he has a couple touchdowns, those odds are going to drop even more, guys. So be on the lookout for that. But Sam Hartman now at plus 850. Our the beginning of the year favorite season totals that we had: Texas over 9.5 wins. They pick up another victory this week against Wyoming. They're now 3-0. Stanford, this is starting to get scary. We had Stanford over 2.5. I was banking on them beating Sacramento State without a doubt. They end up losing, and they go to 1-2. I don't see them upsetting two teams. It's going to be very difficult. Who knows? Pac-12 after dark, anything can happen. But they're now 1-2, and that season win total is in jeopardy. California under 5.5 wins. They win again, so they're at 2-1. But now they start Pac-12 conference play. I do foresee them struggling in the Pac-12. So give me California under 5.5 wins still, but they're at 2-1 now. And then Mississippi State, exactly what we talked about. They would dominate their non-conference schedule, and then they would struggle in the conference. They start off against LSU, and actually, I need to update this. LSU is actually 1-0. LSU beats Mississippi State. Mississippi State falls to 2-1. Again, LSU is notorious for that, beating the mid-level teams in their conference and then losing when the lights shine brightest. And then Mississippi State, I didn't think they would be able to compete with the cream of the crop in the SEC, and that's why their total is under 6.5. When now they're sitting at 2-1. And then lastly, the beginning of the year playoff prediction. At the beginning of the year, we had Georgia, Michigan, Texas, LSU, Clemson, and Oregon. Those first three seeds are looking great still. Obviously, Texas pulling off the big victory against Alabama a couple weekends ago. Michigan and Georgia. Georgia did slip up a little bit this past week, but still closed it out in dominated fashion. Michigan hasn't sweated at all through their first three games. So those were our top three seeds. LSU just has not been looking great after that Florida State game. Even seeing Florida State struggle this week didn't help them much more. LSU is going to need to dominate the SEC to get them back into this conversation, which they got off to a strong start against Mississippi State. Then outside looking in, we had Clemson. Of course, Clemson had that sorry opening performance against Duke. They've had a couple games to regain their confidence. They now step against Florida State at home, though, but Florida State coming in struggling a little bit. Jordan Travis hurt. There's some questions there. People are actually picking Clemson to go ahead and win this game at home. That would put them back in, I'm not going to say playoff picture, but it would be putting them back into the top 25, top 10, and competing in the ACC for an ACC title, as well as trying to get themselves back into this conversation towards the end of the year. It's not going to happen from 1 week to the next. And then Oregon at 3-0, they've still been looking dominant. Another dominant performance this week, and now going against Colorado. Colorado coming in with all the hype behind them. I do think Oregon's going to be able to take advantage, and we'll talk about that in our preview. But give me Oregon at their 3-0, and they're still on the outside looking in. So that is our college football week 3 picks. Again, we went 2-5 on our picks, not the greatest of weeks. It was a terrible slate. We're hoping for better luck this week in week 4. So stay tuned for the preview. I'll tweet that out and post it on Instagram when it is ready. I do expect it to be tomorrow night, if not Friday night, for our slates on Saturday. That will also be tagged along, following up with our UFC preview for our UFC Fight Night this week, guys. Okay, so stay on the lookout for that. But with that being said, let's jump into our weekly winners and losers, guys. So our weekly winners and losers for week 3. This is one of my favorite segments to go ahead and do, guys. Something I have fun with, and just talking about the weekend. It gives us a good chance of recapping the week. And I'll switch back and forth between tabs to go ahead and see some of these games. But again, winners of the week, or actually this goes down. It's not the winners of the week. This is in the losers of the week. My apologies, guys. Late at night. Just got done with a lot of homework. So my apologies. All right, winners of the week, Texas. You know, I'm always going to talk about Texas, guys. They're still cream of the crop in the Big 12. Had a challenge against Wyoming, I will say it. After 3 quarters, I was at a baseball game watching that on my phone. I began to sweat just a little bit, to be completely honest. But Texas is still cream of the crop. They showed out in the 4th quarter, closed it out. That is something that Texas teams have struggled with in the past. That is something that we're another box that we're checking off the list, winning a away game in a hostile environment against Alabama, closing out a game that we've struggled on offensively. 2 big bugaboos last year and years past that Texas has checked off those boxes this year. So it's good to see. Good to see the special teams step up. Good to see our playmakers on the outside step up when needed. And then our defense, of course, just absolutely stout. But that is Texas winners of the week, winning against Wyoming. And then Texas A&M. Not sure if you guys can read that line there, but you guys are winners. Yes, you guys won your game. But against a non-Power 5 team, nobody was expecting to be in it, and they weren't. So congratulations on that. But the bigger congratulations, you guys didn't have any arrests. Congratulations. That is a huge shout-out to you guys. Big improvement. Wade not to speed. way not to do drugs, way not to beat on women. Good job, guys. Shout out to you, Texas A&M. And then Rice, another big winner. Again, Rice just showing out, guys. I don't know. They're giving a big boost to the Texas resume. They're a lot better than what people are assuming or assumed at the beginning of the year, even for myself and my standards. They beat Houston this past week. They're just looking good, guys. They're boosting up their resumes of Texas with a non-power 5 school. It's always good to have a competitive team there. And Rice must be one of the bigger non-power 5 schools to be winning currently right now. And Wyoming's also look good, and we'll talk about them a little bit later on as well. I think this is just going to stay throughout the season. Pac-12 is just a winner of the week every week. That conference just seems absolutely loaded in the last year that they're going to be all assembled together, to be completely honest. And we'll talk about it in the week 4 schedule. But you have Utah, you have UCLA, you have Oregon State, Washington State, Oregon, Colorado. Um, I mean, it is USC. You have a loaded conference with a lot of top 25 teams, a lot of future matchups to look forward to. Young talent in UCLA, Oregon State bringing in a different type of offense that you're not used to seeing in the Pac-12. It's just awesome to see, guys. I'm excited for this week. I'm excited for the Pac-12 the rest of the year. They have a really competitive schedule. Pac-12 after dark is going to be awesome. So yeah, a really stacked conference in Pac-12, and that's why they're another winner of the week, producing some wins again. And they're going to have a stacked week 1 of conference play as well. Winners of the week 3, City of Boulder and Denver, and this is attributed to Colorado. Colorado, I'm not going to say you're a winner. You should not have struggled as much as you did against Colorado State, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on. But they noted there was like millions of dollars generated in revenue in the surrounding cities of Boulder and Denver just because of the amount of people that have been coming in for the Nebraska game 2 weeks ago, and then this past week for Colorado State. You had every single broadcast that you can imagine, sports broadcast you can imagine here in Boulder for Colorado State and Colorado this past week. It was insane. Me and my brother got to go see First Take, the Pat McAfee show. So huge shout out to those productions. It was an awesome experience. Huge shout out to the Boulder campus, a beautiful campus up against the mountains. Loved every second of it. But yeah, huge shout out to City of Boulder and Denver for the exposure that they're getting, for the revenue that they're generating, from the success that Colorado University is having right now on the field. But I don't see that lasting much longer. But huge shout out for the weeks that we've had these past couple weeks, and all of the celebrities that they brought in. To be completely honest, it seemed like it was literally a first name basis type of thing, celebrity after celebrity on the sidelines, from athletes to actors to sports media analysts. It was awesome to see former athletes. So really cool things against City of Boulder and Denver. Also had Friday Night SmackDown, so that's why The Rock ended up being there. It was just a great weekend to be in Boulder and Denver. I'm glad I live here and got to experience some of that hype. So yeah, huge winner for you guys. Winner for the non-power 5 schools, guys. Let's go ahead and pull up ESPN really quickly. A couple of big wins on the schedule this past week for the non-power 5 schools. The Armed Forces schools also. Navy was close to pulling off this upset. They were really, really close. I think they were 13-point underdogs. They were leading at a point in time. They played really, really well against Memphis, gave them a run for their money. Memphis pulls away at the end. But Army going into UTSA and absolutely curb stomping them. Air Force going in and curb stomping Utah State. So huge shout out to them. Wyoming played tough against Texas. Again, like you see it here. It was a 10-7 game at halftime. It ended up 10-10 going into the fourth quarter, and then Texas just has a huge fourth quarter to put it away. But huge shout out to Wyoming. Very, very physical team with the backup quarterback. It was awesome to see. Texas has a stout defense, and that showed through and through. But Wyoming's defense also held Texas' offense. And again, I was impressed with Wyoming, so huge shout out to them. Colorado State giving Colorado a run for their money. I definitely think Colorado State was the better team, despite some questionable plays that we'll talk about here shortly. But Colorado State putting on a performance. Let's go ahead and go down a little bit further to talk about some of these games. UCF put on a hell of a fight against Alabama. Of course, it was attributed to Alabama just having absolutely poor quarterback play. At the end of the day, USF was taking care of business in the first half. It was tied 3-3 at halftime. That's not something I would have imagined. I did imagine the under, as we talked about earlier. But 3-3 at half against Alabama, that's something to be applauded. USF did fight, and they gave Alabama a fight, and ended up 17-3. All right, guys. Let's keep scrolling down. Missouri beats Kansas State. It's not on Power 5. There was a couple more that I did want to touch on that had some pretty impressive wins, and a huge shout out to them. Oh, Ohio and Iowa State just sending Matt Campbell into an absolute downward spiral. Iowa State just looked piss poor. Of course, it was a bad beat because the field goal was called no good. At the end of the day, Iowa State deserved to lose that game the way they played. Huge shout out to Ohio. And there was one more that I wanted to touch on here towards Stanford and Sacramento State. That hurt me. But first, South Alabama actually blowing out Oklahoma State from the Big 12, 33-7. Oh, there's a lot of rumors going around Oklahoma State that sound kind of scary and embarrassing. But yeah, South Alabama goes in to Oklahoma State in Stillwater and beats them 33-7. So huge shout out to South Alabama. And then Rice again. Rice just putting up absolute performance against Texas Southern. I think I said Houston earlier. That was 2 weeks ago, but they just curb stomp Texas Southern, take care of business like they're supposed to, and just dominate Houston schools, I guess. So yeah, they're the kings of Houston. And then where was the other one I wanted to talk about? There it is, Sacramento State, Stanford. Sacramento State ends up still undefeated on the season. Stanford just piss poor performance. Had chances at the end, just couldn't capitalize at the end. And yeah, deserve to lose that game. It hurts our projected over season total for Stanford at 2.5. But what can we do? And then to end the game, Pac-12 after dark again. Fresno State comes through. Arizona State's in bad shape. They're going to be in bad shape going into their conference opener this week against USC. Hurt multiple quarterbacks, and then they got shut out 29-0 against Fresno State. It's going to get ugly this weekend, in my opinion, against USC. So we'll see how that goes. All right, guys, so those are the scores there. Let's go back into our Word doc to see our winners and losers. Again, so now in Power 5 schools, shout out to you guys. A couple big wins there against Power 5 schools, a couple big upsets, and sometimes even on the road, guys. So congratulations to you all. Now, our last winners of the week. It sounds weird. We said it in week 2. The week 4 schedule, guys. I am super excited for this slate, guys. It is an awesome, awesome slate. UCLA versus Utah, top 25 matchup. Oregon State versus Washington State, top 25. And actually, let me pull it up on ESPN to show you guys instead. I think that would be a better graphic to have up. But it is an absolutely loaded weekend. First of all, it's the opening for college or for conference play. That's always going to be competitive. There's always going to be rivalries. So that's just something to look forward to. But let's go through the top 25 first. So yeah, week 4 equals opening of conference play. Can't complain there. But you have Colorado against Oregon. Oregon being 21-point favorites. I really like Oregon in this one. I don't know if they cover. They just shoot themselves in the foot way too many times. But that's going to be an awesome game. All the hype coming in with Colorado. Of course, they're going to be without Travis Hunter. But it's still an awesome game to look forward to. Texas opening up in the Big 12. You know those Big 12 games are always competitive. But hopefully Texas shows that they're able to not fall down to the level of their opponents, and they're able to take care of business on the road for their first game. Ohio State, Notre Dame, the marquee matchup of the week, in my opinion. I do think Notre Dame is going to pull off this upset at home against Ohio State. And we'll talk about that in our preview of week 4, but an absolutely loaded slate there. Florida State against Clemson again. Clemson trying to get back into the top 25 at home against Florida State, who struggled last week. That's going to be awesome to look forward to. Oklahoma against Cincinnati. I think this will be a high-scoring game. We talk about it on the Horns 2020 podcast. I think it's going to be a great game to look forward to and see what Oklahoma can do against a more competitive team. I'm not saying Cincinnati is a world beater, but they're more competitive. UCLA and Utah, another top 25 matchup against Pac-12 schools. Let's see if Cam Rising can make his return. There's some rumors that he will. I think that's a huge boost to Utah. If he's not there, I am worried about Utah's chances at home. And I do think UCLA could pull off that upset if Cam Rising is not able to go, because Dante Moore has looked awesome in his freshman debuts. And then we have Ole Miss at Alabama. I honestly think people are sleeping on Alabama. I understand their quarterback play, but Milroe is going to be back, as well deserved. I don't think he deserved to lose that job, especially not to the quarterbacks that they have behind him. So Milroe back. I do think that they win against Ole Miss. That's something to look forward to. And then we have Tennessee against Utah. We'll talk about UTSA. That's probably going to be much closer than people thought. But Tennessee just has looked absolutely horrid, and we'll talk about that soon. Arkansas LSU, always a banger. Over under 55 is kind of questionable because they always get into like a dogfight. To be completely honest, they do have high-powered offenses, which is always surprising that they end up low scoring. But yeah, we'll see how that goes. An SEC battle. We have Iowa and Penn State. Something to look forward to, a Big Ten action. Let's see if Iowa can actually put up some points and remain competitive. I don't see it happening, and I do think Penn State pulls away and wins there. We have USC against Arizona State. That's going to be a blowout. And then we have another potential blowout here, Washington and California. So, yeah, there are going to be some pretty big games on the slate, guys. Looking forward to it. Week 4 has a lot of potential behind it, and I'm excited for it. So, huge shout out to Week 4 as our last winners of Week 3. All right, guys, losers of Week 3. Big 12, again, this is a weekly thing, just like Pac-12 is a weekly winner. Big 12, yikes. The only other team that you guys had other than OU and Texas in the top 25 was K-State. K-State falls to Missouri. Didn't look like they could stop a nosebleed. Big 12, you guys are in trouble, honestly. Like, I understand you guys have reinforcements with Colorado and Utah coming next year. Sure, that's great, but it must hurt for you guys to be tweeting the top 25 and just seeing Texas and OU that we know aren't really part of the Big 12, that we know you guys are rooting against every single week, that you guys will have your referees out against them every single week. Understood. We understand the mission there. But yeah, it must hurt. And it's honestly a little bit enjoysome. I enjoyed seeing it, honestly. I enjoy seeing the Big 12. I enjoy the comments about the commissioner hating his life for having to represent these two teams, and these two teams represent them, and none of the other teams are living up to their hypes, whether it's K-State, Texas Tech, TCU, Oklahoma State, Iowa State, both in bad shape, and we're going to talk about them soon. Yeah, Big 12, you guys are in trouble, and you guys better start preparing for your reinforcements to get here sooner rather than later. Alabama quarterbacks. Yeah, I mean, that's all I have to say. You guys are losers. I honestly think that Milroe was benched because of the offensive coordinator. Tommy Rees coming from Notre Dame asking Nick Saban, honestly, and this is not publicized. I just think this is something that happened behind closed doors. Telling Nick Saban that his Tyler Buckner or whatever would have been able to run the offense better than Jalen Milroe. Absolutely did not happen. They struggled mightily against USF. It was a sad performance from what they produced on the field, and then the camera angles that we had to watch that game. It was just terrible all the way around. Terrible game to watch. Terrible game for Alabama quarterbacks. So, yeah, losers of the week. I'm glad Jalen Milroe gets his starting quarterback position back. I don't think he deserves to lose it, especially not to the two guys that are behind him. We talked about Michigan State again last week. They officially began the process to fire their coach. I don't see it getting much better, and they get absolutely blown out against Washington. Put up no fight whatsoever, and that's something that you don't want to see. Usually it's a locker room, and this is why I kind of avoided that game, like a locker room that will rally up for their coach or rally up for their program and have some pride. They didn't show up, and I don't think they show up the rest of the season. It was an ugly game, an ugly performance, and Michigan State, you guys are losers, and you're probably going to be losers the rest of the season. Colorado fan base. I know we talked about the city of Boulder and Denver being winners and the revenue they're generating, the publicity they're getting, but the fan base, man. First, and you guys can call me a boomer for this take. You guys can say you didn't have, or what, did you not have fun? Do you not remember your college days? I do remember my college days. I also don't remember having to rush on the field as a 24-point favorite. That's just, and you guys can say, they're kids. Let the kids have fun. By all means, have fun. Go out and get drunk. It was a huge game. There's a lot of celebrities, a lot of potential, sold out crowd. I get that. By all means, live in that environment. But rushing the field as storming the field as a 24-point favorite is kind of embarrassing, guys. Like, especially when you're taking these 24-point favorites to overtime, and looking absolutely poor on defense and couldn't stop an underneath crossing route. Like, it was mind blowing to see. Play after play after play, it was an underneath crossing route that would go for 13 yards, and that's how Colorado State was scoring and moving the ball. It was questionable adjustments at halftime, and you kind of have to question the defensive coordinator and head coaching there. But, I mean, whatever. All the hype is there. But, yeah, it was just a little bit questionable with the fan base running on the field as 24-point favorites. Not a fan of it. I do think rushing the field and storming the court or whatever it may be in whatever sport you're watching should be saved for upsets, should be saved for high-quality moments like championships, not for a 24-point favorite against somebody that nobody thought was going to be in your realm of competition. And and that's why all the celebrities showed up so they can go and get hyped for a quarter and then leave after you're supposed to be up by 20 points. Instead, you have to take them all the way to overtime. And honestly, in the second half, I didn't even see the camera pan once to a celebrity. I want to say they all left. So yeah, huge yikes there. And then giving death threats to opposing players, I get it. That was a dirty hit. At the end of the day, it's football, guys. Like a few years ago, a few years back, we would have been like, damn, what a hit, and it would have been going viral. Now we're talking about, yes, hits to the head, defensive players, and that's why when we're trying to put safety into the game, I understand it. At the end of the day, to give death threats over that type of hit, even when Travis Hunter himself is coming out and just wanting to play football, has nothing to say about the guy. Deion Sanders comes out and apologizes or says that he forgives him, which I thought was cringy. Also, like nobody needs your forgiveness in that one. But at the end of the day, like death threats, guys, like come on, like grow up a little bit. Colorado fan base, you guys are questionable for that. Yeah, it's sorry to see, guys, and I hope that stops. Best wishes to that player and his family. Hopefully that stops soon. It's just spoiled kids, to be completely honest. And I saw a couple of those students while we were on the campus of Colorado, beautiful campus. But we have a lot of daddy money, if you know what I'm talking about. They're on that campus, a lot of spoiled brats, and it shows when you do stupidities like that. So huge thumbs down, losers of the week, Colorado fan base. And then Tennessee just absolutely gets stomped. Had no chance against Florida. I actually like Tennessee going in. I was hoping that Joe Milton, he has an amazing arm, probably one of the most, I mean, electric arms that we've seen in college football, in the history of college football, but just no accuracy, no touch, and he just can't get the ball to his wide receivers. It's an ugly offense to see. Huge drop off from last year. Tennessee, yeah, you guys aren't it. You guys won't be it. And Joe Milton, I'm sorry, but I don't think you're him. Amazing arm, but no touch, and you're not a quarterback. Yeah, so just go join some long throwing competitions, I guess, because I think that's what's in your future, and that's what's in the future for Tennessee. And then Texas haters, I know everybody was on it. We go into the fourth quarter. We're in a tight ball game against Wyoming. Everybody's talking about how we were making fun of Texas Tech, how Big 12 might be ready to Wyoming for sure, blah, blah, blah. Well, we still put up 21 points in the fourth quarter, and we won by 21. I mean, we won by double digits. We win by 3 scores. Silence all the haters. We can't close out games. We choke. Quinn this. Steve Sarkisian can't win. It was a fluke against Alabama. Whatever. Everything was already floating on social media going into the fourth quarter. And, Texas is so lucky that they're on Longhorn Network. Nobody's able to see this. Everybody has eyes on Texas. Biggest brand in sports. At the end of the day, haters are silenced. Texas comes away with a 3-score victory. Even move up on the AP polls to number 3. So, yeah, moving into the Big 12, first road game against Baylor, and Wyoming's behind us. We beat them. Texas Tech couldn't. Yeah, that's all I have to say. Texas haters, losers of the week. And then Stanford, and this is also a little bit of us at ZT Fully Loaded. The season over total, again, I was banking on Stanford being able to win 2 of their first 3 games. Because they were against non-Power 5 schools. They win the first one, then they lose this against USC, and then they lose this one. And it was just a sad performance. Sacramento State, huge shout out to you guys. Again, a non-Power 5 school that put up an awesome performance. And they beat Stanford, and they dropped to 1-2. Now they need to win 2 games in Pac-12, and I don't know. It's going to be scary to try to see that. I can see 1 upset. I don't know if I can see 2. Now, jumping into these 2 Big 12 teams, Iowa State and Oklahoma State. They play each other this week. That's why I just think it's even more funny and more ironic. They are just, garbage fires. Like, it is sad to see what's going on with those programs. Iowa State, again, yes, you might have gotten robbed with that field goal call. At the end of the day, you guys played like crap all game long. Couldn't do anything on offense until that very last 2 drives. It's your own fault. Don't leave it in the hands of the referees at that case. And then Matt Campbell, at the end of the game, one of his fans saying, "You got this, Matt Campbell, you're on the hot seat," and has to literally be restrained by his players. Matt Campbell, who was candidates for the top positions in college football, candidate for the NFL even a couple years back, and now he doesn't have Brock Purdy, and last year was ugly, this year's getting ugly again, and now has to be held by his players so he doesn't go, and who knows what he was going to try to do to that fan, but he was not happy. It's like how the mighty have fallen, honestly. Iowa State not looking good. Matt Campbell, bad visual for you, man. You guys are losers of the week there. And then Oklahoma State. So first, they get blown out by South Alabama at home. That's just embarrassing enough. But then today, when I'm doing research for our Week 4 preview, I'm hearing rumors or seeing rumors on Twitter that there might be a mass exodus of players. And when I say this, is that after this game, talking about quitting the team and then entering the transfer portal when that becomes open. But and that would be, I don't know if we've ever seen that in college football, that maybe a team is not able to put out a full 22, or a team that doesn't have a bench and just very limited on depth. It's sad to hear, to be honest, and I hope it's not true, honestly. Like, that's not good to get for the game. That's not good for the university. Not good for the Big 12, all feelings aside. But, man, if that happens, that is sad to see. That talks a lot about the coaching staff, who we've been critical about since for years past. I think that I'm not even going to name him. I think that coach should have been out a long time ago. Sad antics, terrible personality, and maybe these rumors are true, and it's going to be a huge reflection on him and that coaching staff. Now jumping to Arizona State, it's more like prayers for you guys. Losing multiple quarterbacks, losing in a shutout fashion at home against Fresno State. I know you guys nobody was really high on you this year. Completely understand that. But getting shut out by Fresno State at home and then having to go face USC this week. Prayers to you guys. You guys are a loser of the week, but yeah, prayers to you guys that you guys just survive against USC and hopefully put up some sort of points. And they'll get shut out 2 weekends in a row. And then loser of the week, we told you guys that week 3 schedule and our week 3 picks. I knew it going in. I said it multiple times. It was a terrible schedule. It was a warm up for conference games. There was maybe 1 or 2 games that were exciting. A lot of blowouts. It was more like, are they going to cover or not? 28 points, 30 points, 40 points. But nothing really exciting. It was a pretty terrible week 3 slate. So huge loser for the week 3 slate. Huge loser in our picks as we go 2 and 3. But our reward is this week 4 slate that we have in front of us, and it's going to be beautiful. And I can't wait to preview it, and I can't wait to sit and watch it on Saturday. All right, guys, to close this out, our Heisman update. We talked about it a little bit earlier. We still have Caleb Williams. I'm still going with Quinn Ewers after his performance at Alabama, boosting up his odds. And, of course, Sam Hartman, our dark horse from the beginning of the year. I still think I'm high on each and every one of them, and I still think that each and every one of them has a chance at this point in time for the Heisman. I do think Travis Hunter's odds take a big hit because he's going to be out 3 weeks. I virtually think it's impossible for him to win now. Michael Penix is still putting his name up there. I should probably put him here now already. Bo Nix can put his name up there with a huge win in Colorado, or if Colorado ends up winning, Shedeur Sanders, his name's going to be up there for sure if it's not up there already. And then our playoff updates. I know Florida State and Texas have flipped, but Georgia won, Michigan 2. In the AP poll, Texas has flipped with Florida State. I'm still going to leave it 3-4. I do think Texas has the most convincing power schedule right now. But Florida State, the way they looked against LSU, was just dominating fashion. So I'm still going to keep them there. I don't think they deserve to be dropped from 3-4, even with a close game against Boston College. Texas also had a close game against Wyoming. We just pulled away in the fourth quarter. So that's why I'm not flip-flopping them there. But I still think they're firmly in the playoff, and we'll see what happens with Florida State this week against Clemson. It's going to be a good game out in Clemson, so we'll see how it goes there. All right, guys. Well, that is it for our Week 3 recap. I hope you guys enjoyed it, guys. Again, this is just a hobby of mine. It's something cool to go ahead and recap the games. Something I enjoy doing, going back and talking some analysis, some things that we saw, some things that we may have missed. So if I missed anything, guys, please feel free to drop it in the comments in our YouTube, drop it on our social media. Excited for this Week 4 slate, guys. Look out for the Week 4 preview. Look out for our Week 4 preview. I apologize. Look out for our Week 4 preview. Look out for the UFC preview, as well as the UFC recap. It's going to be an awesome slate, guys. Excited for NFL as well, underway as well, going into Week 3. Just an awesome time in the sports calendar, guys. Can't be more excited. Baseball coming into October pretty soon, and we're going to have baseball playoffs upon us. So it's going to be a beautiful time. October is always the best time for sports. You have NBA coming back, you have MLB in postseason action, and then you have football in full force. So no better time to be alive, guys. With that being said, thank you guys very much. Again, please support the channel by subscribing, following, sharing. I appreciate all the support, guys, and I hope you guys enjoy. Thank you guys very much. Have a good night, and I'll see you guys this weekend for the previews later on.